Greetings! In this video I'm gonna talk about pros and cons of the Witcher fighting style as compared to HEMA and other historical styles. My name is Alan and this is the Swords Path, Fight Like a Witcher series. So before we begin, let me say a word or two about HEMA. What we understand as HEMA, so a set of techniques, a way of fighting as described in historical manuals, I think it is the most optimal, the most reliable, the most consistent way of using the sword. But it isn't the only way. I think that 90%, 99% of sword users in the Middle Ages actually never heard about Master Lichtenauer and his legacy. So other ways of fighting existed besides HEMA. The common soldier, I don't think he fought using the elaborate understanding of Indus and Winden and all the techniques like mutieren and bekleren. I think the common soldier fought using a simple parry-response system. So I block your blow, I respond. I block your blow, I respond. That's how most people fought. An anecdote. In 2014, a Polish fighter named Grzegorz Brzeziński won the Swordfish longsword tournament. Throughout the whole tournament, I never saw him use a single Indus technique. No Winden, no bekleren, no mutieren, none of those fancy manual stuff. He fought with pure speed and brutality in the power response way, not the Indus way. So he wasn't very good at HEMA, but he still proved a superior fighter. Despite not using a single master technique, he managed to crush all his opponents at the most prestigious HEMA tournament in the world. So let's start with dynamics. In Witcher 3 you will notice all techniques are performed like this. Very fluid. As you can see, the motion is constant. It flows from one move to another in a smooth way. This tells us that the moves were performed by an excellent swordsman, Maciej Kwiatkowski, but not a fighter. The difference between stunt moves and combat moves is the distribution of speed over the arc of the cut. So in choreography, you will want a smooth, constant speed, where moves can flow really smoothly. While in combat, especially sword combat, you need sudden bursts of acceleration. The range of cuts in The Witcher 3 is a big issue because most cuts are performed like this. Very short range, as you can see, and range is truly a key factor in all fencing. So in reality, I would perform these blows like this, fully extending my hands to reach an opponent that is moving. So the next issue, spins. In the game you can often see Geralt holding his sword like this and engaging with the spin. So as I said, there is room for spinning and pirouettes in fencing, at least I think so, but not in such a way. If you just jump into an enemy back first without engaging his blade first, you'll get skewered, you'll get stabbed dead in the back. So doing something like this is a big no-no. However, let's talk about an alternative, a spin that actually works. So if you engage from this very position, back in the Kamae, if you engage with a sweep to the blade, to engage, then create threat to the opponent's head, he will probably try to defend frantically, and he will probably defend from that obvious strike. If you then choose to spin to confuse him and deal a strike at a different height, it might get in at the maximum range actually, because the opponent will probably be reeling back in defense. And all of this can be performed in a fairly rapid succession. And in fact, I have used this technique successfully in sparring, even in an eliminations fight with Jan Putkiewicz. So another issue, wide sweeping strikes like that. So they're not very HEMA. HEMA, in my experience, mostly uses half cuts to keep the point a constant threat to opponent's chest and face, right? So as I said, HEMA wasn't the only way of fighting, so how wide sweeping strikes work in a parry response system instead? My first fencing teacher was a self-taught guy. I know how that sounds, but bear with me for a second. He developed a style based on wide sweeping strikes that come in a very rapid successions. And he perfected it. Even with my current knowledge of HEMA, I had a hard time beating him, because he was so good, so fast, so brutal and strong at his style. So actually, if performed in a rapid succession, wide sweeping strikes can be pretty dangerous. You can say that wide strikes provide a lot of openings for you to counter-strike. That's true, but believe me, it's easy to talk about openings and counter-strikes when there's nobody charging at you screaming like a wild animal, right? Another example is the Polish saber cross-cutting school, which employs wide sweeping strikes like that, done in a rapid succession. You can see a perfect example of the cross-cutting school at the Sieniawski fencing channel. These guys are excellent fighters, probably the best saber fighters I've ever seen. And still, they get mocked by people who say, "Oh, it provides so many openings." But remember, seeing an opening is one thing, exploiting it is another. So the wide sweeping strikes in The Witcher, they are not very HEMA, but I'd say they're pretty valid, especially if you corrected their dynamics to combat ones. So, the last point in this video, there will probably be part 2 if there is enough material in the game, but this is the last one in this video. The last one will be rend and rend mechanics. So in Witcher 3, rend is a technique that looks like this. Geralt prepares a wide sweeping cleave and cleaves. It looks pretty stupid in real life, right? Well, it is rather stupid for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is dynamics of this blow. So it is performed with a constant speed over the whole path, while, as I said, it should be performed as a sudden burst of acceleration. Second reason is the preparation itself. Why would you ever put your sword in a position like this when it does really nothing to augment the blow? It might slightly increase the power of the blow, but it gives your opponent so much time to react. However, there is a kosher HEMA and kenjutsu way to perform it. It's from the guard known as Hyphon Tag. Can you see the difference? The sword is already up, and to attack with it, I just need to lower it, like this. A simple, untelegraphed move. So you can see the sword is already in a perfect position to deal the strike. Moreover, I don't have to prepare the blow like this and telegraph it. All I need to do is lower my sword without any warning. So rend in the in-game form, it's not very good, but again, it can be corrected into a valid technique. So that's all for now. Let me hear your opinions about this video in the comment section. If you'd like to hear more about rending and how to make it valid, pirouettes and how to make them valid, just tell me again in the comment section. Thanks for watching and keep slaying.